The wrench slipped from my grease-stained fingers as Emma's voice cut through the silence of my garage like a rusty blade. She was on speakerphone again, cackling with her friends while I worked on the '67 Mustang that would never be good enough for her taste. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Honestly, girls, men line up for me. Don't forget it, she purred into the phone, her voice dripping with the kind of arrogance that made my stomach turn. Poor David thinks he's irreplaceable. It's almost cute. I froze beneath the hood, my knuckles white against the cold metal. Almost cute. That's what 38 years of life had earned me, being almost cute to my own wife. Emma, you're terrible, Lisa giggled from the speaker. What if he hears you? He's in his little man cave with his toys. He doesn't listen to anything I say anyway. My little man cave. The garage where I'd built a business restoring classic cars, where I'd earned every dollar that paid for her designer handbags and weekly spa treatments. The place where I apparently didn't matter enough to lower her voice. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped closer to the door connecting the garage to our kitchen. Through the crack, I could see Emma perched on our granite countertop, her long legs crossed, designer jeans hugging curves that had caught my eye 15 years ago, back when I thought I was the only one looking. I mean, seriously, Emma continued. If I wanted to replace him tomorrow, I could have Mike, Jake, or Chris here in an hour. They actually appreciate a real woman. The rag fell from my hands. Mike, Jake, Chris, the husbands of her 3 best friends, the guys I'd shared beers with at backyard barbecues, watched football games with, even helped Jake move last spring, the same men who'd clapped me on the shoulder and called me lucky to have Emma. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Ray, my business partner. You coming to Murphy's tonight? The usual crew will be there. The usual crew, which included Mike, Jake, and Chris. I stared at the message, pieces clicking into place like a perfectly tuned engine. The way Emma always looked stunning when we met up with that group, how she'd touch their arms when she laughed, lean in close when they told stories, the way she'd insist on sitting next to different guys each time, rotating like she was sampling a wine flight. David's so clueless, Emma's voice drifted from the kitchen. He thinks I'm faithful because I come home to him every night, like a dog who thinks you love him best because you throw him scraps. The comparison hit me like a punch to the gut. A dog, getting scraps. I'd been married to this woman for 12 years, built a life with her, supported her career changes, put up with her friends' constant commentary about how she could do better. And all this time, I'd been the faithful dog waiting for scraps while she fed steaks to other men. My hands shook as I reached for my phone and typed back to Ray. I'll be there. Got something to discuss with the crew. Emma's laughter echoed from the kitchen as she ended her call. I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood floor, coming toward the garage. David? She called out sweetly. I'm going out with the girls tonight. Don't wait up. I emerged from behind the Mustang, studying her face. She'd already touched up her makeup, changed into a low-cut black dress I'd never seen before. Going out with the girls, my ass. Which girls? I asked, keeping my voice level. Just Lisa, Tina, and Monica. Girl talk, you know how it is. Lisa, Tina, and Monica, the wives of Mike, Jake, and Chris, the women who had no idea their husbands were apparently standing in line for my wife. Have fun, I said, forcing a smile. Emma stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming in the small space. She placed a manicured hand on my chest, right over my heart. You're such a good husband, David. So understanding. The irony was suffocating. Good husband. Understanding. If only she knew what I was beginning to understand. She kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark I wouldn't bother to wipe off, and headed for the door. Oh, and David, try to shower before you come to bed. You smell like motor oil again. The garage door slammed behind her, and I stood alone among my tools and half-finished projects. My reflection stared back from the chrome bumper of the Mustang, a man who'd been played for a fool, but who was finally waking up. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Emma's social media. There it was, hidden in plain sight. Photos from last month's neighborhood barbecue where she was pressed close to Mike while his wife Monica took pictures of the kids. A check-in at Jake's auto shop when she'd claimed to be at yoga. Comments from Chris on her selfies that were way too familiar for a married man. How long had this been going on? How many times had I shaken hands with men who were sleeping with my wife? My phone rang. Ray. You sound weird in that text, man. Everything okay? I looked around my garage, at the business I'd built with my own hands, at the life I'd constructed while my wife constructed lies. Ray, You know how you always said Emma was too good for me? Yeah, but I was just busting your balls. You were right. She is too good for me. Way too good. So good, in fact, that she's sharing herself with half the neighborhood. Silence on the other end. David, what are you saying? I'm saying tonight's going to be interesting. See you at Murphy's in an hour. And Ray, bring your camera phone. I have a feeling we're going to want to document this evening. I hung up and walked back to the Mustang. The engine was finally purring perfectly after months of work. Sometimes it took patience to get the timing just right. But once you did, the machine could really roar. Murphy's pub was packed when I arrived, the usual Friday night crowd nursing beers and pretending their lives were more interesting than they actually were. I spotted our regular table in the back corner, where Mike, Jake, and Chris were already holding court with Ray and a few other guys from the neighborhood. They looked so normal. Mike with his receding hairline and dad bod, telling some story with animated hand gestures. Jake nursing his craft beer like it was fine wine, even though he worked at a tire shop. Chris checking his phone constantly, probably texting my wife. David, Mike called out as I approached. There's the grease monkey. How's business? Can't complain, I replied, sliding into the booth across from them. Cars keep breaking down. I keep fixing them. Simple economics. Must be nice having a skill people actually need, Chris said, not looking up from his phone. Emma's always bragging about how handy you are. Emma's always bragging. Right. I wondered what else Emma told him during their private conversations. Ray caught my eye and raised an eyebrow. I gave him a slight nod. Speaking of Emma, Jake chimed in, she looked amazing at the barbecue last month. You're a lucky man, David. Lucky, I repeated, tasting the word like it was poison. Yeah, I'm starting to realize just how lucky I am. Mike leaned forward, his beer breath washing over the table. You know what your problem is, David. You don't appreciate what you've got. Emma's a catch. If you're not careful, someone else might notice. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a wrench. Someone else might notice, I said slowly. Interesting theory, Mike. Anyone specific you had in mind? Mike's face reddened slightly. I'm just saying, a woman like Emma has options. Oh, I know she has options, I replied, pulling out my phone. In fact, I've been learning a lot about her options lately. I scrolled to the screenshots I'd taken of Emma's social media interactions. The photos where she was getting cozy with various married men, the check-ins that didn't match her supposed whereabouts. Like this photo from Jake's shop, I continued, turning the phone so they could see. Emma told me she was at yoga that day. Funny how yoga studios look so much like auto repair shops these days. Jake's beer glass stopped halfway to his lips. She just stopped by to ask about getting her oil changed? Oil changed, I nodded. Is that what we're calling it now? The table went quiet except for the background noise of the bar. Chris had finally looked up from his phone, his face pale. Ray leaned back in his seat, a slight smile playing at his lips. He was enjoying this. David, what are you getting at? Mike asked, his voice tight. I'm getting at the fact that my wife has been very honest with me lately. See, she doesn't know I overheard her phone call today, the one where she mentioned how men line up for her, how she could have Mike, Jake, or Chris over any time she wanted. The color drained from all three faces simultaneously. It was like watching a time-lapse video of flowers wilting. That's not, Chris stammered. Not what? I interrupted. Not true? Not happening? Not something you thought I'd ever find out about? Jake set down his beer with shaking hands. Look, David, I think there's been some misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, I said, my voice growing louder, is that you three thought I was too stupid to notice, that I'd just keep playing the fool while you played with my wife. Other patrons were starting to stare, but I didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what happened when the neighborhood nice guy finally grew a spine. Mike tried to salvage the situation. David, you're being paranoid. Emma's our friend, just like you are. We would never... Never what? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Never sleep with her? Never text her? Never meet up with her while your wives think you're working late? I pulled out my phone again, this time showing them a screenshot of Emma's group chat that I'd managed to access through our shared iCloud account. Their faces appeared in the thread, along with messages that made it clear this wasn't just flirtation. Holy shit, Ray whispered, reading over my shoulder. Emma wrote that? The messages were explicit, detailed. They included ratings, comparisons, and worst of all, mocking comments about their wives and about me. Emma had shared intimate details about our marriage, our finances, even our bedroom problems. Chris looked like he might vomit. David, I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been screwing my wife for months? Explain how you all sit here drinking beer with me while planning your next hookup? Explain how you've been laughing at me behind my back? The entire bar was watching now. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. Good. Let the whole neighborhood see this. You want to know the best part? I continued, my voice carrying across the now silent pub. She thinks I'm too pathetic to do anything about it. She thinks I'll just sit there and take it like a good little dog. Mike stood up, trying to assert some authority. David, lower your voice. People are staring. Let them stare, I shouted. Let them see what kind of men you really are. Let them see what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. I turned to address the entire bar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Mike Henderson, Jake Morrison, and Chris Taylor, 3 married men who've been taking turns with my wife while I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her lifestyle. The silence was deafening. Then, slowly, murmurs began rippling through the crowd. Jake tried to grab my arm. David, stop this. You're making a scene. I jerked away from him. I'm just getting started. You see, boys, you made one crucial mistake. You assumed I'd stay down. You assumed I'd keep being the nice guy who doesn't rock the boat. I leaned across the table, my voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than my shouting had. But here's what you don't understand about nice guys. We're nice by choice, not by nature, and when we stop choosing to be nice, we can be very, very creative. Chris's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went even paler. Guys, we need to go, now. Hot date? I asked sarcastically. Let me guess. Emma's wondering where you are. Mike threw money on the table. This isn't over, David. You're absolutely right, I replied. It's not over. It's just beginning. And Mike, you might want to check your social media tonight. I have a feeling your wife's going to see some very interesting photos. They scrambled to leave, pushing through the crowd that parted to let them pass. The bar erupted in conversation as soon as they were gone. Ray whistled low. Damn, David, that was brutal. That was nothing, I said, sitting back down and finishing my beer. That was just the opening act. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Where are you? I'm home early. The girls canceled. I smiled and typed back, at Murphy's with the boys, having a great conversation with Mike, Jake, and Chris. You should join us. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. I'm tired. Going to bed. Sweet dreams, I replied. Dream about all those men lined up for you. I turned to Ray, who was still staring at me in amazement. Ray, remember how you always said I was too nice for my own good? Yeah? Well, I just retired from being nice, and I think I'm going to be very good at being something else entirely. The next morning, Emma was already gone when I woke up. No note, no explanation, just the lingering scent of her expensive perfume and a coffee mug in the sink. She'd left early, which meant she was either meeting one of her lovers or doing damage control with her friends. I didn't care which. I had work to do. My first stop was the bank. 12 years of marriage had taught me that Emma never paid attention to our finances. She just spent money and assumed it would always be there. She had no idea how much we had, where it was kept, or how our accounts were structured. That ignorance was about to become very expensive for her. Mr. Peterson, the bank manager greeted me warmly. What can I do for you today? I need to restructure our accounts, I said, sliding a folder across his desk. I'm starting a new business venture and need to separate some assets. It was all perfectly legal. The money I'd earned from my restoration business was mine to move. The joint accounts could be split, the credit cards could be canceled and reissued in my name only. Emma had never bothered to build her own credit. Everything was tied to my income and my credit score. 2 hours later, Emma's financial safety net had evaporated. Her credit cards would be declined by evening. Her access to our savings was gone. The monthly allowance she'd grown accustomed to had disappeared, but I wasn't done. My next stop was Jake's auto shop. I'd been there dozens of times over the years, helping him with difficult repairs, lending him tools, even covering for him when he was hungover and couldn't work. Jake owed me favors, and it was time to collect. I found him under the hood of a BMW, his hands shaking as he worked. He looked like he hadn't slept. Jake, I called out. He jerked up so fast he hit his head on the hood. David, what are you doing here? Just thought I'd stop by and see how business is going. Since my wife has been such a loyal customer. Jake's face cycled through several shades of red. Look, about last night. Last night was just the beginning, I interrupted. See, Jake, I've been thinking about our friendship. All those times I helped you out, covered for you, lent you money when business was slow. I've been a good friend, haven't I? Yeah, you have, but And how did you repay that friendship? By screwing my wife in the back office while I was home working to pay for her lifestyle. Jake looked around nervously. His shop was busy, and other customers were starting to notice our conversation. David, please, not here. I've got customers. Oh, I know you have customers. In fact, I've been talking to some of them. Mrs. Henderson was very interested to hear about your relationship with Emma. Apparently, Mike never mentioned that his wife's car was getting serviced here, too. Jake's wrench clattered to the floor. You told Mike's wife? I told her that her husband and my wife have been very close lately. I let her draw her own conclusions. Funny thing about wives, Jake. They're usually smarter than their husbands give them credit for. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of a Facebook post from Monica Henderson. Ladies, if your husband is working late more often lately, you might want to check where he's really going. Some of us are learning hard truths about the men we married. The post already had 37 likes and dozens of comments from neighborhood women sharing their own suspicions. You're destroying lives, Jake whispered. No, Jake. You destroyed lives. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. I walked closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to close up shop early today. You're going to go home and tell your wife everything, every detail, every time, every lie you told her. I can't do that. Tina will leave me. Tina's going to find out anyway. The question is whether she hears it from you or from the screenshots I'm planning to share with the neighborhood Facebook group tonight. Jake's face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Jake, that money you borrowed from me last month? I'm calling in that debt, a full payment by Monday, or I'll be forced to discuss your financial situation with your customers. I'm sure they'd love to know their mechanic can't even manage his own finances. From Jake's shop, I drove to Chris's workplace. Chris worked at the local real estate office, selling houses to young families who trusted him to find them the perfect home. He had a reputation to maintain, a professional image that depended on people seeing him as stable and trustworthy. That image was about to take a hit. I walked into the office like any potential client, asked to speak with Chris about listing my house. The receptionist led me to his desk, where he was trying to focus on paperwork with shaking hands. David, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you want? I want to discuss real estate, Chris. Specifically, I want to discuss the market value of honesty. I sat down across from his desk, noting how other agents and clients were within earshot. You see, I'm thinking about making some changes to my living situation. My current arrangement isn't working out. Too much infidelity in the neighborhood, if you know what I mean. Chris's pen snapped in his grip. David, please. I'm also concerned about property values. When word gets out that certain residents are engaged in extramarital affairs, it can really hurt the neighborhood's reputation. Families with children don't want to live near that kind of drama. I spoke loudly enough for the neighboring desks to hear. A few heads turned our way. In fact, I've been documenting some concerning behavior. Photos, messages, evidence of married men conducting affairs. I'm thinking of presenting it all to the Homeowners Association. What do you think that would do to property values, Chris? Chris stood up abruptly. I need to take a break. Can we continue this conversation outside? Of course. Lead the way. We walked out to the parking lot, where Chris immediately turned on me. What the hell do you think you're doing? I'm doing exactly what you three did to me. I'm taking something you value and destroying it piece by piece. This is insane. You're acting like a psychopath. Am I? Or am I acting like a man who's tired of being treated like an idiot? I pulled out my phone again, showing him more screenshots. Emma's been very chatty about your performance, Chris. Very detailed. She even ranked you guys. Want to know where you placed? Chris lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. Violence won't solve this problem. Besides, these are all backed up in multiple locations. Ray's got copies. My lawyer's got copies. Even my daughter has copies, and she's coming home from college this weekend. The mention of my daughter made Chris freeze. You told Ava? Ava deserved to know why her parents' marriage is ending. She deserved to know that her mother chose to throw away our family for cheap thrills with married men. David, please. I have kids too. If this gets out, it's already out, Chris. The question is how much further it spreads. That depends entirely on how cooperative you and your friends are going to be. Chris's shoulders sagged. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to feel what I felt when I realized my wife was sharing intimate details about our marriage with her lovers. I want you to experience the humiliation of having your private business become public entertainment. I stepped closer. Most of all, I want you to remember this feeling the next time you think about betraying someone who trusted you. My phone buzzed with a text from Ray. Emma's at the police station. Someone told her you were threatening people. I smiled and showed Chris the message. Looks like your girlfriend is trying to get me arrested. Too bad I haven't actually threatened anyone. I've just been having honest conversations about documented facts. Chris's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and winced. It's my wife. Better answer it. Honesty is very important in a marriage, don't you think? As Chris reluctantly took the call, I walked back to my truck. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Emma's financial security was gone, her lovers were panicking, and the neighborhood gossip network was in full swing. But I was just getting started. The real show was about to begin. Emma was waiting for me when I got home, her face flushed with anger and something that might have been fear. She stood in our living room like she was ready for battle, her designer heels planted firmly on the hardwood floor I'd installed myself. The police said you haven't actually broken any laws, she said without preamble. But they warned me that harassment charges could be filed if you keep this up. Harassment, I repeated, setting down my keys. Interesting choice of words coming from someone who's been harassing our marriage for months. Don't you dare turn this around on me. You embarrassed me in front of the entire neighborhood. My friends are getting calls from their husbands, asking questions, demanding explanations. Their husbands are demanding explanations? How terrible for you. Emma's perfectly manicured hands clenched into fists. You have no idea what you've done. Monica Henderson called me crying. Lisa Morrison is threatening to leave Jake. Chris's wife won't even talk to him. Sounds like the truth is having exactly the effect it should. The truth? Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. The truth is that you're a pathetic man who can't handle the fact that other people find me attractive. Other people finding you attractive isn't the problem, Emma. The problem is you finding them attractive back, in hotel rooms, in their cars, in Jake's back office. For the first time since I'd known her, Emma looked genuinely shocked. How do you know about Jake's back office? Security cameras, Emma. Jake showed me the footage himself. Apparently he's been recording his extracurricular activities. Insurance, he called it. That was a lie, but Emma didn't know that. I watched her face cycle through confusion, fear, and calculation. You're bluffing, she said finally. Am I? Check your credit cards, Emma. Check our bank accounts. Check your precious financial security and tell me if I'm bluffing. She grabbed her purse and pulled out her phone, probably to check her banking app. I watched her face change as she realized what I'd done. You can't do this. Half of that money is mine. Half of the money I earned while you were screwing around? I don't think so. My lawyer disagrees too. Your lawyer? Did I forget to mention that? I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served with papers on Monday. Emma sank into the leather chair I'd bought for her birthday last year. The one she'd complained wasn't expensive enough. David, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. Counseling, I laughed. What would we tell the counselor, Emma? That you've been running a rotation schedule with 3 married men? That you've been sharing intimate details about our marriage with your lovers? That you called me a dog waiting for scraps? Her face went pale. You heard that? I heard everything. Every cruel word, every laugh at my expense, every detail about your little arrangement. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Sabrina. We need to talk. Meet me at the lake house tonight. Come alone. Sabrina, Emma's best friend, the one who owned the boutique downtown and always seemed to know everyone's business before they did themselves. The one who'd been conspicuously absent from Emma's recent drama. I showed Emma the text. Looks like your friend wants to chat. Emma's reaction was immediate and telling. Don't go. She's not thinking clearly right now. Why? What does Sabrina have to do with any of this? Nothing. She has nothing to do with this. She's just upset because the drama is affecting her business, people are talking, and some of her customers are involved. But something in Emma's voice told me there was more to it. Sabrina had always been the queen bee of their social circle, the one who orchestrated events and controlled information. If she wanted to meet, it wasn't just about business concerns. I think I'll take that meeting, I said. David, please, just let this go. We can figure out a quiet divorce. Split everything fairly. No more public scenes. A quiet divorce? Like the quiet affair you've been having? Emma stood up, her composure finally cracking. Fine. You want to destroy everything? Go ahead. But remember that you're destroying yourself too. You think you'll come out of this looking like the hero? You're wrong. People will see you as the bitter husband who couldn't satisfy his wife. Maybe. Or maybe they'll see me as the man who refused to be a doormat. I guess we'll find out. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Emma? Pack a bag. You'll be staying somewhere else tonight. I'm changing the locks. The drive to Lake Morrison took 20 minutes through winding country roads. The lake house belonged to Sabrina's family, a sprawling cabin that had hosted dozens of parties over the years. I'd helped set up chairs and grills there, played volleyball in the sand, watched Emma laugh and flirt while I grilled burgers for everyone. Tonight, the place looked different, dark. Only one car in the driveway, a black BMW that screamed money and status. Sabrina was waiting on the deck, silhouetted against the lake. Even in the dim light, she looked perfectly put together, her blonde hair styled in a way that probably cost more than I made in a week. "David," she called out as I approached. "Thank you for coming." "Sabrina." Emma seemed to think this meeting was a bad idea. Emma's right. It is a bad idea. For her. That got my attention. I climbed the steps to the deck, studying Sabrina's face in the porch light. She looked satisfied, like someone who'd been waiting for this moment. "You want to know something interesting, David? I've been orchestrating this whole thing." I stopped walking. "What?" "Emma's affairs, the timing, the way you found out. I've been pulling the strings for months." My mind raced, trying to process what she was saying. "That's impossible. Emma chose to cheat. Those men chose to betray their wives." Did they? Or did they respond exactly the way I knew they would when I created the right opportunities? Sabrina walked to the railing, looking out over the dark water. 2 years ago, you cost me everything. Remember the boutique investigation? When the city found out I was selling counterfeit designer bags? The memory hit me like a punch. I'd been the one who reported Sabrina's business to the authorities after discovering she was selling fake merchandise to unsuspecting customers. I'd thought it was the right thing to do. "You destroyed my business, David. My reputation, my financial security. I lost everything. You were defrauding people." "I was surviving," she snapped. "And you took that away from me. So I decided to take something away from you." She turned back to face me, and in the porch light I could see the calculation in her eyes. Emma was easy to manipulate. A few comments about how she deserved better, some encouragement to explore her options, strategic invitations to events where the right men would be present. Mike, Jake, and Chris were even easier. A little attention from a beautiful woman, some alcohol, and their moral compasses disappeared. "You set this up, all of it. Every detail. The group chat where they mocked you. I suggested they create it. The hotel meetups. I recommended the locations. Even Emma's phone call that you overheard. I knew you were in the garage. I told her to use speakerphone." The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture I didn't want to see. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the plan isn't finished yet. See, destroying your marriage was just the beginning. I want to destroy everything. Your business, your reputation, your relationship with your daughter." She pulled out her phone, showing me a video file. This is Emma confessing everything, admitting to the affairs, talking about how she never loved you, describing intimate details about your inadequacies as a husband. My stomach dropped. She would never. She already did. Last week, when she thought she was talking to a therapist I recommended, turns out my friend isn't actually licensed. She's just very good with a camera. Sabrina smiled, and it was the coldest expression I'd ever seen. "This video goes public tomorrow, unless you do exactly what I tell you to do." "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. Leave town, give Emma an uncontested divorce, sign over your business to pay her alimony, become the pathetic failure she always said you were." I stared at this woman I'd known for years, this person who'd sat at my dinner table, who I'd considered a friend. "You're insane." "I'm patient, and I'm very, very good at getting what I want." My phone buzzed, a text from Ray. "Something's wrong. Emma's at my shop with some guy I don't recognize. They're asking questions about your business records." Then another text, this time from my daughter Ava. "Dad, Mom called me. She's saying you've had a breakdown. She wants me to come home and help commit you for psychiatric evaluation." I looked up at Sabrina, understanding dawning. "You're not done. This meeting, the confession, it's all part of the plan." "Very good, David. You're finally catching up." "What's the endgame?" "The endgame is that by tomorrow night, you'll be discredited, divorced, and possibly institutionalized. Emma will have grounds to claim you're mentally unstable, your business will be seized to pay for your treatment, and I'll finally have my revenge." I thought about Emma at Ray's shop, probably planting evidence or creating a paper trail that would support claims of my instability. I thought about my daughter being manipulated into believing her father had lost his mind. I thought about months of careful planning designed to destroy every aspect of my life. And then I started laughing. "What's so funny?" Sabrina demanded. You made one crucial mistake, I said, pulling out my phone. You assumed I was as stupid as Emma thought I was. I showed her the screen, which displayed a recording app that had been running since I arrived. Everything you just said, it's all recorded. Your confession, your threats, your admission of fraud and manipulation, all of it. Sabrina's face went white. You can't. I can, and I am. See, unlike you, I actually learned something from my mistakes. I learned to document everything. I pressed send, uploading the recording to multiple locations. That file just went to my lawyer, the police, and about 50 people in our social network, including the wives of Mike, Jake, and Chris. Sabrina lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. Too late. It's already out there, along with some other interesting information I've gathered about your current business practices. Turns out you never stopped selling counterfeit goods. You just got better at hiding it. Her composure finally cracked completely. You don't understand what you've done. Emma will still destroy you. The video you just admitted was obtained through fraud? The one recorded by an unlicensed therapist you hired? That video? Sabrina's shoulders sagged as she realized her plan had imploded. Game over, Sabrina. You played yourself. My phone was buzzing constantly now as the recording spread through the neighborhood. The truth about Emma's manipulation, Sabrina's revenge plot, and the systematic destruction of multiple marriages was finally coming to light. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more card to play. Sabrina, you're going to call Emma right now. You're going to tell her to meet us here. And then we're going to have a conversation about consequences. Emma arrived at the lake house 30 minutes later, her face a mask of fury and desperation. She'd clearly been crying, her perfect makeup smeared, her hair disheveled. Behind her came Mike, Jake, and Chris, looking like men walking to their execution. You recorded her, Emma said without preamble. You recorded a private conversation? I recorded a criminal confession, I replied. There's a difference. Ray had arrived too, along with Lisa Morrison, Monica Henderson, and Tina Taylor, the wives who'd been betrayed. Word had spread fast once the recording went public. Half the neighborhood seemed to be driving toward the lake house. This is insane, Mike said, his voice shaking. David, we can work this out. We can all just walk away and pretend this never happened. Walk away? Lisa Morrison stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. Walk away from what, Mike? From the fact that you've been screwing Emma for 6 months? From the fact that you lied to my face every single day? Lisa, please. Don't you dare, Lisa, please me. I heard the recording. I heard everything Sabrina said about how easy you were to manipulate, how pathetic you all were. Monica Henderson was quieter, but her silence was somehow more menacing than Lisa's anger. She walked up to her husband and slapped him across the face with a sound that echoed across the water. 22 years, she said simply. 22 years of marriage, and this is what it meant to you. Chris tried to approach his wife, Tina, but she backed away like he was diseased. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. Emma looked around at the assembled group, her social world crumbling in real time. This is all David's fault. He's the one who... I'm the one who what? I interrupted. Who exposed the truth? Who refused to be your doormat anymore? Who fought back when you tried to destroy me? You were supposed to just accept it, Emma said, her voice rising. You were supposed to be grateful for what you had. The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even her lovers looked shocked at the casual cruelty of it. Grateful, I repeated. I was supposed to be grateful that my wife was cheating on me, that she was mocking me to her lovers, that she was planning to have me committed so she could steal my business. You don't deserve me, Emma snarled. You never deserved me. I settled for you, and I should have left years ago. Then why didn't you? Because it was easier to have my cake and eat it too. You paid the bills, they gave me what you couldn't. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Even Sabrina looked uncomfortable with Emma's honesty. My phone buzzed with notifications. The story was spreading beyond our neighborhood now, shared on social media, discussed in local Facebook groups. Emma's words were being recorded by multiple people, creating a permanent record of her callousness. Emma, I said quietly, you have one chance to walk away from this with some dignity intact. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that in about 10 minutes, this place is going to be swarming with people who want to see the show. I'm talking about the fact that your confession is already viral in our community. I'm talking about the fact that your career, your reputation, and your future are hanging by a thread. I pulled out my phone and showed her the notifications. Channel 7 News just called. They want to interview the woman who orchestrated multiple affairs and tried to frame her husband as mentally ill. The story's already trending on local social media. Emma's face went white as she realized the scope of what was happening. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to get in your car and drive away. You're going to sign the divorce papers without contest. You're going to disappear from my life and never contact me or my daughter again." "And if I don't?" "If you don't, I'll hold a press conference tomorrow morning. I'll share every detail, every photo, every message. I'll make sure the story follows you wherever you go for the rest of your life." Emma looked around at the faces surrounding her. Former friends who now saw her clearly, lovers who were already distancing themselves, wives who would never forgive her. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is. It's completely over." Cars were pulling into the driveway now. Neighbors, curious onlookers, people who'd heard the recordings and wanted to see the aftermath. Emma's public humiliation was about to become literal. She looked at Mike, Jake, and Chris, perhaps hoping for support, but they were dealing with their own consequences. Their marriages were over, their reputations destroyed, their comfortable lives in ruins. "You destroyed everything," she said to me. "No, Emma, you destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see the wreckage." She turned and walked toward her car, her heels clicking on the wooden deck. At the top of the steps, she paused and looked back. "You think you've won, but you haven't. You're still the same pathetic man you always were. The only difference is now everyone knows it." "Maybe," I replied, "but everyone also knows what you are. And between the two of us, I think I'll sleep better tonight." Emma got in her car and drove away, her taillights disappearing into the darkness. I watched her go, feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. The crowd was growing larger, people emerging from cars, phones recording everything. But I was done being the entertainment. I'd said what needed to be said, exposed what needed to be exposed. Ray walked up beside me. "So, what now?" "Now I go home, change the locks, and start over." "Think she'll really disappear?" I thought about Emma's pride, her need to be the center of attention, her inability to admit defeat. She'll try to come back. She'll try to spin this somehow, make herself the victim. And when she does? I smiled, thinking about the recordings, the evidence, the witnesses to tonight's events. When she does, I'll be ready. I'm done being the nice guy who gets walked on. From now on, I'm the guy who fights back. The crowd was dispersing now, the show over, people heading home to discuss what they'd witnessed. The three couples whose marriages had imploded were dealing with their own aftermath. Lawyers would be called, assets would be divided, children would be told difficult truths. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My problem had been solved the moment I decided to stop accepting unacceptable behavior. I got in my truck and drove home through the quiet streets of our neighborhood, past houses where lights were still on, where people were probably discussing the evening's events. Tomorrow there would be gossip, speculation, judgment. Let them talk. I'd spent too many years caring what other people thought, trying to be the husband Emma wanted, the neighbor everyone liked, the nice guy who never caused trouble. Being nice hadn't protected my marriage. It hadn't earned me respect. It hadn't prevented betrayal. But fighting back had accomplished all of those things in a single evening. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for a moment, looking at the house I'd bought with Emma 15 years ago. Tomorrow, I'd start the process of making it mine alone. I'd redecorate, rearrange, remove every trace of the woman who'd tried to destroy me. My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter Ava. "Dad, I saw the recordings. I'm so sorry. I'm coming home this weekend. We need to talk." I smiled and typed back, "Looking forward to it. I have a lot to tell you about standing up for yourself." As I walked toward my front door, I thought about Emma's parting words. She was right about one thing. I was still the same man I'd always been. But she was wrong about that being a weakness. I was still the man who worked hard, who kept his word, who treated people with respect until they proved they didn't deserve it. The difference was that now I was also the man who refused to be anyone's fool. And that man was going to sleep very well tonight.